This is a production of WKNO Memphis. Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Tax rates in the Consolidated School District tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, publisher of the Memphis Daily News. Thanks for joining us. We're joined tonight by members of the County Commission and the Consolidated School Board to talk about tax rates, the budget, and what comes next. I want to welcome Mike Ritz.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
County Commission. Thank you for being here. Tamika Hart from the Unified School Board. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Billy Orgel, head of the Consolidated School District. Thank you very much. And Wyatt Bunker, also from the County Commission. And Bill Dries, senior reporter with the Memphis Daily News. I'll start with you, Chairman Ritz. Okay. We have a budget. We've had a couple of budget proposals come from the school district. Right. One that asked for some $140 million increase back in the early spring. That was, I think,
that never really got to
that never really went very far. But now there's one that's basically they need about $30 million. Right. Is that a reasonable number, and is that a doable number given the tax situation, the reappraisal year, and so on?
Well, I think the 30 is a very reasonable number given the circumstances they've been in. It's less money than they were spending between the two last year. And given everything, I think 30 million is a reasonable request. But the real big issue is, are there enough votes to give them 30 million? To do that, we would need, on the tax rate vote, 9 votes. On the tax rate, on the budget, we would only need 7. But when we get to the tax rate, and I'm not sure there are 9 votes to do that.
9 out of 13.
13.
Right.
Because it takes a 2/3 majority to have a tax rate that's greater than, increase of greater than 10%.
Right.
And in normal years, that probably wouldn't be such a difficult problem because of the reappraisal, we got a bigger challenge.
And because just to keep revenue equal, and we'll get into this, but just because of a reappraisal year, to keep revenue equal, the tax rate needed to go up to what, 433, give or take?
432, like, which is a 30-cent exact, which is exactly 7.5% of the 10%.
And where would it need to go to get the $30 million for the schools, give or take?
Probably about 43 cents.
Okay, so up to
43 cents,
okay.
I think, would do it.
Commissioner Bunker, what's your take on this? I mean, are the votes there? Is your vote, are you in favor of this kind of increase?
Absolutely not. We have to remember what's good for the taxpayers is good for Shelby County, is good for Shelby County schools. And what's bad for the taxpayers, bad for Shelby County, it's bad for Shelby County schools. If we increase the taxes on the taxpayer, we're going to increase our unemployment rates. We're going to decrease our tax revenues. When's the last time that you ever heard anyone that was planning on locating a business in DeSoto County say, whoa, now that I see they increase the tax rate in Shelby County by 36 cents, I think I would rather go there. Never happened, and it's not going to happen.
And so if from that point of view, if the money's not there, you see the tax increase, what would you like to see cut? Because I guess you go back to the school system and say, well, you're going to need to cut something, that $30 million, because we don't have that $30 million to give you. What do you think they should cut?
Well, one of the things that we did the other day while looking at the budget was kind of spot check their budget. There were some emails that I got about the budget, some that were factual, some that were proven not to be factual. When I did that spot check, one of the things I found, I was just looking into a little salary on one position, and it happened to be their security head, paid $159,000. He was originally paid $175,000, but $159,000 has 140 employees. That showed, I looked at that and I saw that as a sign that they need to review maybe some of their salaries.
Across the board to get to the
across the board.
Right.
Maybe they're administrative. They were extremely administrative heavy. When I was on the school board, they professed to have cut 26% of their administration. Do we need to look at more cuts in administration? Their focus now has been, well, if we cut any more, we're going to have to cut in the classroom. I have a hard time believing they have to cut in the classroom when they have a security director being paid $159,000. Think about it. The mayor of the county was paid $155,000, $158,000.
Between cut it.
He's paid
145 now.
Yeah, 145. Okay, so he's paid $145,000, the highest elected official in West Tennessee that represents 1 million people. Paid $145,000. He's paid $14,000 less than their director of security, who hires 140 security guards.
Chairman Orgel, I mean, if the money's not there, if the tax increase can't go through, if the county can't somehow come through with the $30 million that we're talking about, what can be cut?
Well, I mean, I got to give our superintendent and our deputy superintendent, Hobson, and then Stevens, our deputy, a lot of credit, and their cabinet and staff and the board, because they've worked pretty hard to get down to a figure that we think is reasonable. We're $75 million less than the combined school system last year. Arguing about one salary, if you took the 70 top positions and took their average salary and cut them 10%, you'd cut less than $1 million out of the budget. So it's small to think. It's almost like in a $1.2 billion budget arguing over what paper you're going to use or what stock you're going to use. And I think they've done a great job. They've cut back 26% of the positions. It's in salary. It's not alleged. It's actually what's in the budget through the combination. And I think the largest thing, we've outsourced custodial, we've outsourced transportations, we've gone to the unions and says we're not going to pay you the way we've been paying you. We've cut the benefits of the teachers. And I challenge all the elected officials on other bodies in this community to go take on the unions, to go cut salaries, to cut benefits, and to cut their budget. And I hadn't seen that being done anywhere but the school board. And we don't have taxing authority, and we can't raise revenue. So if we don't have the $30 million, I think, and there's going to be a list, and Superintendent Hobson's already said it, if we level up to the classroom size from the city of Memphis former school system and use that across the county, there's about $28 million in savings. So if we got zero new revenue, that's where it's going to happen. And that's when it wasn't a threat. It's the only place left to cut other than 50,000 here, 100,000 here, which will never add up to the $30 million. That's the big ticket item, which is increased classroom size, which will be fewer employees, fewer teachers, and larger classrooms.
And is that, you in here, Tamika, I mean, for a year now, I mean, as long as this has been going on, people have said, the superintendents have said, I think many, if not all the school board members have said, they wanted to assure parents that your classroom wouldn't change, that your teacher would still be your teacher, classroom size would be about the same. All this change could go on, but the classroom itself would be unaffected by all this. Do you see, I mean, what we're talking about here, is there a way to avoid, if the $30 million doesn't come from the tax increase or some other funding source, is there a way to protect the classroom?
No, I mean, the budget that we presented, even in its bare bones, does that. It protects the classroom. So if we're not able to get that $30 million, no, we're going to have to. I mean, that's the only other place that we can go. I mean, we've made changes across the entire sector when you're talking about all of these different departments. And I think that it's absolutely ludicrous and petty to look at one person's salary, and you're not even making fair comparison. There's an employee on Shelby County who makes $104,000 and 6 people report. So let's not be petty and talk about salaries. I mean, we can cut the $159,000, but that still does not get us anywhere near $30 million. And so I think it's time to take personalities and personal positions out of this and look at this budget. I mean, the truth of the matter is, we have had the same level of funding from our county funder since 2007. Since 2008, both districts have been funding itself out of its savings. Both districts, Shelby County as well. Shelby County has floated its staffing formula by using its savings. It doesn't have the money to do that anymore. That's the bottom line. So the issue is not that we're spending too much. It has now become a revenue issue. And the only way to address a revenue issue is to either get more revenue or you cut.
But are you sympathetic too, though, to what Commissioner Bunker says about the negative impact of increasing taxes so dramatically? I mean,
absolutely, but you're going to pay one hand on the other. I mean, so if that's going to increase unemployment, guess what else is getting ready to increase unemployment? When we have to let go, hundreds of teachers because we have to cut. So it's all one bucket. I think in this community, from all sides of this community, we keep forgetting that it's still one community, right? It's still one group of payers. So they're going to pay one way or the other, and the unemployment is going to go up because we're going to have to let people
isn't that
go.
Back to what you had said before? Isn't that part of when you talk about the economic development question? The company that's going to locate in Memphis or Germantown or DeSoto County. Yes, they're looking at taxes, but another thing they look at is education. Is it a skilled workforce? Is there a high enough dropout rate? Are there people there I can hire for my company?
They do look at that. They look at all those factors, but the cost of doing business, the cost of the tax rate, unless you're a big business and you can get a pilot, you can get your tax abated, You're a small business in Shelby County. Expenses, what it costs to do business in Shelby County, is a big driver in where you decide to go, where you decide to locate your business. Let me tell you, when we go to the school board, we do get somewhat flippant attitude about, oh, this person, he's picking on one person. I don't know this person. I'm not picking on anybody. All I'm doing is picking one salary out of a host of salaries that I can see is out of line. All right. Let me remind you, we got this budget when we walked into the meeting. They didn't present us this budget any too soon. When we walked in the meeting, we got that budget. Let me tell you the main way to determine the performance of a school system. The best way to determine the performance of the school system is to look at their per pupil expenditures. That includes any of those reserve funds that you were talking about, Tamika. It includes all of that in your per pupil expenditure. Why is it that Shelby County schools can provide more teachers, better salaries, for their principals and so forth? They can provide more of that in their classroom than Memphis can with more money.
Well, let's get the answer from the chair up in here. What's the answer to that question?
Average children. Okay.
One, you look at over time, the Memphis City school legacy system, you had neighborhood schools. And you look at the high school size in Shelby County. I think our largest high school, Germantown might be one of our largest high schools, but most of them have excess of 2,000 students in them. You don't have that in the city of Memphis. You've also had a depopulation of certain areas. So we know this, and Tamika and I have been through this, and we're going to have more of it, and we're sorry to the citizens community. We've depopulated parts of the city. We've got buildings, and we've got resources dedicated to those buildings. So it's more efficient to have Whitehaven or White Station or Houston High School with 2,000 children in it than it is to have another smaller school with 400 or 500 kids, 300 kids. Also, you have more offerings. So we've got to come to some of the facilities committees met this week and to discuss it, but we're going to have to close some schools. It was part of the TPC plan, and that's part of the reason. It's more expensive to educate when you've got an additional principal, additional assistant principal, additional staff, and another building to take care of. And so there's going to have to be some contraction, and I think that adds to it.
Bill.
Well, let me expand on that. Let me translate that for you just a little bit. That is the failure of a school board that Tamika served on to do what needed to be done years and years and years ago.
We
gotta let you respond.
Because all of this is ridiculous. If we were not merging, guess what? Shelby County schools would be in deeper trouble than they're in right now. This merge is actually saving Shelby County because we are trying our best to not have to gut that system. They cannot afford that system. What Memphis has done from the beginning realized when we had to cut, we could not afford to keep as much as we wanted to. We couldn't afford to keep that rich staffing level because we could see down the road, you don't have the money to afford this. And Shelby County is at that point now. So without this merger, they'd be in more trouble because they didn't have the money as a system alone to afford it. And so you have to decide who's making the better decisions. But I'm so tired of us and them. At this point, we are a school system and we're trying to do right by all of these children. But that's the same question of asking why can Williamson County do better than Shelby County and they spend less money? Right. It's a ridiculous question, a ridiculous notion.
While we appreciate y'all's thoughtful rescue, we would prefer to be a part of our own system.
Well, and that seems inevitable that's going to happen. Let me come back to you, Chairman Ritz, that the municipal bill was passed in the State House, and so we're going to have a year of a consolidated school system. Right. It's pretty obvious that the counties, the suburbs are going to break off into their own systems. There's talk that you're in conversations or about to start conversation with suburban leaders about that. What are those talks going to be about? Buildings? What?
Well, as you know, we 2 or 3 of the commissioners met with the suburban mayors in negotiations in the November through January timeframe over what they wanted to do with respect to charter schools. They were going to go to charter school. I think they now obviously see that with the state law changes, they can probably get municipal schools. So they want to come back now and negotiate with us because they don't want the county going after them under equal protection issues. That is their main emphasis, of course. And what can be negotiated there are equal protection issues, assuring from the standpoint of the county commission that there's compensation for the buildings, because the worst problem for us, in fact, is essentially the Germantown situation. It's not as bad in the others by far. But in Germantown, they've got 8 schools, but they've got 8,400 students. But more than half those students don't live in Germantown. So if over a period of time that municipal school system gets those 8 schools, but quits educating the kids that don't live there, most of them live in unincorporated Shelby, then the county commission is going to have to build new schools. And I think there's going to be a great resistance to building schools for students that essentially are the unified school boards.
Well, and at a point,
anyway.
no one's quite sure how they're going to pay for the existing schools and existing school buildings and so on. Okay.
That's right.
Bill, let me get Bill in.
We've talked a lot about $30 million and the impact of that on the tax rate. Mayor Luttrell has come up with a plan to create $20 million with the idea that the school system would come up with the other $10 million, either reserves or a combination of reserves and something off of the priority list. So let me start with Commissioner Bunker. Is $20 million more palatable or any less objectionable than $30 million if the school system comes up with $10 million?
Yeah, it's less objectionable than $30 million, and $10 million is less objectionable than $20 million, and $5 million is less objectionable than that. Let me say this about the concerns about Germantown or any other suburb housing empty seats. It doesn't make sense. The money follows the child in education. So is that suburb really going to be willing to have empty seats in their classroom and not be paid for them? They've got to provide a teacher, they got to heat and air, they got to clean that square footage. It only makes financial sense to fill that seat with a child. So if those seats are empty, I assure you they're going to be motivated to work out a deal with the county
and
on
to
filling
be fair,
that seat.
we've had mayors of various suburbs on. They've always said that it is their intent to have those kids from unincorporated Shelby County in the schools. Now, I guess remains to be seen. But that's what they.
And as a matter of fact, they said that. Let's be honest. The mayor of Germantown said, and if we don't need them, then we have to determine what happens. I mean, so let's just be fair. And so there are some people here who actually really want the county to do right by our children. That's whether there's 50 school systems, one school system. And so I'm ready for us to start having that conversation. I am so sick and tired of us and them and let's do right by some and not right by all. We need to sit down. If the municipalities are forming, we need to have an intelligent, adult, grown person conversation around what buildings do you need? How do we work this out together as a county?
And if they reached out to you, Chairman Orgel, on the suburban leaders, because there's going to have to be conversations about, I mean, back in the day, there were conversations about shared services and so on.
Right.
But not,
it actually, Tamika's right, it absolutely makes sense. And I'm going to assume that Commissioner Bunker is not on the side that wants to keep filing lawsuits. I know Chairman Ritz has been on the side that has been involved in the negotiations. And Tamika's right, and I've said this all along. Take the $3 million plus that everybody spent on legal fees. We're all one county. And you take our preschool and pre-K debate, and that's about 25 classrooms that could get funded for a year for all the money the suburbanites and the county commission spent on lawsuits. I think we could all sit down at a table, work it out. No one wants to give away the buildings, Chairman Ritz. I believe they belong to the Shelby County School Board. Some deal needs to be worked, some accommodations. Old buildings you're in real estate are an albatross, and you don't want them. There's deferred maintenance of $10 million on Germantown High School. So some of that stuff is going to have to be worked out. And Millington, I think in your district, Commissioner Bunker, is another one that's got some issues. But we've got to work better as a community. Commissioner Bunker said it. The tax rate in suburban Nashville is about $440, $445. If you live in suburban Memphis, it's $402 plus $323, $720. So whatever. So give or take a few cents. The tax burden is too great in our own community. So we've got to work together, as Ms. Hart said, and you tried to say it, Ms. Bunker, but we've got to come together, coalesce. And we need to sit around like this, work out the issues, quit suing each other. It doesn't matter. We all need each other, and you pointed it out.
Well, speaking of needing each other, I want to try as gingerly as I can to go back to $20 million plus $10 million from the school board.
We don't want to talk about that. That's why we.
Mr. Chairman, if it's $20 million on the tax rate, do you, not to put this crudely, but just to get right to the point, do you need Commissioner Bunker's vote?
No. No.
Mr. Chairman,
let me
go ahead.
Let me explain the way. Up until last Wednesday, a week ago, we had not heard from the mayor any support for the school system at the county commission level. So there was a great deal of concern on the county commission of what the mayor was going to do for schools. He surprised us, and I'd say pleasantly surprised us, frankly, when he said, one, they found 11.6, which is a rather peculiar thing to happen in government these days.
I'm still hoping to find that in my life.
I'd like to find that in my net worth too. And then And then he suggested, on top of finding the money, which was great, I'm glad they did, that he proposed a 6-cent tax increase over the certified rate to provide the 20. So essentially what we're dealing with at the moment is a tax rate to get to the certified rate of 30 cents plus 6 cents for the schools. That's 36 cents. I don't need but 7 votes to get that. Now, the question is, are commissioners going to be willing to go more than 6 and 20? 6 cents on the tax rate, 20 million for schools. And I think the problem now is that some of the commissioners running for election next year may find it difficult to get past what the mayor recommended because they feel very vulnerable to being criticized.
And let's go to, I think, a question Bill was going to have for you, Chairman Orgel. Is there 10 million somewhere? If the county can come up with 20, I mean, is there 10 million? Can you,
well, I mean, I think
like this county, can you
I think we got a little
million?
manna from heaven last week, too. I think the state funding formula, the BEP, the
Right.
Basic Education Plan, came back and there was about $5.8 million.
From 35 to 30.
And it even lowered
Right.
it again. So I think we're always looking for efficiencies. It's tough. I can tell you in the past, people probably didn't. But now we're in a have-to stage. I think Ms. Hart, myself, 21 other board members, we're committed to doing it. And every opportunity we've had to cut something in our budget, we have done it.
Okay.
Hey, let me say something about the BEP.
But I think we do have some additional money in there.
The additional money for the BEP, I heard that it was $10 million and that your cut was $5 million. You came from $35 million down to $30 million, and that the increase in the BEP from the county finance, chief financial officer in the county, he said it was $10 million additional from the BEP. Good source.
That's how rumors get started.
Exactly. And rumors
Well,
get
y'all
started,
cut
and then people go on TV and state them as facts and then realize that they were wrong. So the $9 million that you may be referring to, we've explained that at the meeting, that $9 million is money that used to pay for teachers' COLA. And as we explained it, the state has given a waiver from the district. The district requested a waiver to use that $9 million to harmonize. So Shelby County teachers' raises salaries increase, so we can harmonize. Memphis City principals' salaries increase.
Speaking of found money, there's still an open question, I believe, about whether the city of Memphis, I'm not sure who to turn to because we don't have anyone from the city of Memphis here, but I'll put it on you. The city of Memphis, is there any chance of getting money from them? There's talk, there's outstanding negotiations, debate. Does the city owe the old school system $60 million? They think they're owed money by the school system. Have you guys had conversations with anyone from the city?
Yes, and Superintendent Hobson has led the charge on that, and he has been even when he was the attorney for the school system and not the acting superintendent or the interim superintendent. And I think that we'll see a resolution of that. I know it's a long time coming for Tamika and the board, but I think we'll see a resolution. Do I think it'll be $57 million, just in my opinion? Probably not. Will it be paid over time? Probably. But it's like any other funds, whether they're stimulus money or anything else, it's temporary. So I don't think we need to rely on it. I think it could plug a gap for a number of years, which would be good. And it would have been in reserves anyway, had it not had it been paid 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
And let me come back to you, Chairman Ritz. We talked about the suburban schools breaking off, and if we go back to when they originally proposed to do something, there's been lawsuits and all this stuff. They had some budgets they put together. They had an outside group, and you raised a lot of questions about how realistic those budgets were. Do you think? I mean, I assume you haven't changed your mind.
No. In fact, Germantown's raising their tax rate this year 30%, and there's nothing in it for schools. Right. They ain't even thought. 30% increase this year, and nothing for schools. I think, first of all, I want to take a minute to compliment acting superintendent, interim superintendent Dr. Hobson. He's done a wonderful job of communicating with the county commission, and I want to thank the school board members that are here, and the public should know how cooperative he did. He did a wonderful job yesterday in presenting the budget. There are a lot of things going around in the community about the state money. There were 3 parts of the state money. They raised the BEP budget for the whole state. Then there's a COLA thing, and then there's the state's holding back money because of the ASD schools. You can look at that thing any way you want to look at it and say anything you want about it. It's very confusing.
With just a couple minutes left, Commissioner Bunker, you represent the suburbs. Back to this question: the suburban schools are gonna, they're gonna be formed. Do you think that the tax burden on suburban residents is going to go up once these school systems are set up? That so far they've been unrealistic about how much this is really going to cost.
It probably depends on which suburb you're talking about. I can tell you that probably yes for some and maybe no for others, maybe yes for all of them. It's really going to depend on what happens with the capital improvements. I mean, there was a precedent set years ago. I mean, I don't know how they explain it. The city schools were given over 40 schools by the county. They weren't required to retire the bond debt on those schools. Now, everyone is singing off the same songbook. No one agrees in giving the schools away to the municipalities. Well, not only do we pay our proportion amount, we pay more than that. We broke it down. The trustee broke it down last year. The county taxpayers are paying $25, $30 million more, whatever, to education than what they get out of education.
Okay, and just 1 minute left here. We mentioned Chairman Orgel, Dorsey Hobson, the interim superintendent. He was only going to be in there for a few months. You guys ended the search. Are you trying to focus your search on one man, Dorsey Hobson, for the long term?
We didn't end the search. What we did was we thought it was very difficult to hire somebody in this environment where we're merging, possibility that the board goes down, goes back up, municipal schools, and I think we're pretty fortunate. Tamika would probably agree that Dorsey stepped in, and we just basically said, can you stay in here a little bit longer? Let's hold off the search for a little while. Let's get settled down, calm down, see what happens. And he's done a great job. I think this happened in Houston when was it Rod Page, Tamika? He was on the school board. He wasn't a career educator and became the school board chair.
They planned for him to be.
I didn't know.
Would you like,
but he did a great job.
Tamika, would you like to see Dorsey stay longer, or just for this 1 year?
Well, I'm always in support of a search. I think that search help you find who the best person is wherever they are.
Well, we are done. Thank you all for being here. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. Join us again next week. Good night.